grave. That was so ludicrous.
Well, I'm Fred, the youngest brother of the clan, and been around a few years, getting where I'm finding a problem counting them, but I still remember I'm here.
And I'm Sam, number 12 of the clan. And I've been around since 16.
So, can you name all your brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And when they're born? Yeah.
Oscar was born in 98, Henry in
96.
96, Henry in 98, Eula in 1900. Who's next? Nora?
Over in 1903, unless John came before her in 1902.
John came before her.
There were 15 months between them, so John would be 1902.
And Bob,
1905.
Maggie.
You could about put 2 years in there for most of them.
Yeah. It was always so easy to tell when the age of the older ones because Beulah was born in 1900. Robert, or Bob, was next.
1905.
Maggie,
Probably 7 years. James. Probably 1909. You just, I've got a record in here.
Earl,
And 11.
1911.
Chris in 13.
Yeah. And
Sue.
Sue, and there was 18 months between Sue and me, approximately. Sue was, I believe, 19 and 15. I was 16. And
Hubert in 19 and 19.
19. And Ray.
21. I'm 24. 1924.
I remember 24. I wasn't sure. Ray, got dates on Ray and Hubert.
So,
My mother also had 2 miscarriages. One between Hubert and Sam. One after I was born.
Those don't count. I think the twins should. Dr. Jenkins broke their necks in childbirth with their forceps. They thought they ought to come early because she'd had an attack of gallstones.
is that how you remember it, Fred?
Yes. It was because of the gallstone surgery. Either, I don't know if they were born before the surgery or after.
Did the
My
twins
understanding is that he took them before.
I do know that she told me while she was in the hospital, she wasn't anyone close by to take care of her or restrained, and she rolled out of the bed on the floor and tore the surgery stitches out and had to be redone, so she had an excessive large scar on her side.
So what are your first memories?
You may not want to hear them. I would like to ask Fred. I was discussing when we moved from the lower farm with my mother, discussing with my mother, and she calculated that I was about 2.5 years old. But something you had written about moving from the lower farm to the upper would make me somewhat older.
Well, those are the dates she gave me of the whole tenure of moving.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ray and I were both born in the log cabin between the 2 walls, according to her statement.
Yeah,
He was born in 1921,
I
so...
remember that.
So,
Believe it or not, we slept in the barn that
Yeah.
night.
I
I
know,
always did.
it's a crowded
The night you were
place.
born. No, I don't remember Ray's birth.
I have it written down, but I don't remember the date she gave it. It just moved.
But I remember any number of things when we lived at the lower farm. Some, I'm sure that sometimes our memory plays tricks on us and we think we remember something because we heard it so often, but there's some things there's no way I could have been told. I remember the expression on my mother's face when there was a storm coming up, and we were standing on the front porch looking down, each one calling out the casualties. There goes the apple tree, there goes the spring house, there goes the mill house, and Mother appeared in the door, and the expression on her face, I remember so vividly. She said, "You kids get inside before you go next." I remember Jim coming crying, "Bob and John are fighting again, Mama." And I remember seeing them dragging a calf up the road with no skin on it. They had skin that were dragging it off to dispose of it.
Why did they skin it?
To sell the hide.
Oh.
That was a valuable little piece of leather.
Yeah, but what about the meat? That was valuable too, wasn't it?
Well, I don't think they had died of something other than butchery.
I see.
Other things I remember.
By the way, I still have the knife that they scraped the eyes with when they tanned it.
Oh, do you?
It's down in the basement somewhere. It's a blade with a handle on it. You scraped and then you salted it and set and you scraped again. You may have used ashes on it sometime rather, I don't know. Trying to dry it and get all the way fat, that some of the skin off and dry it. Because they did tan, and the generation before Sam and I made their own shoes and saddles and things like that. Saddles for the horses.
So how did so many of you fit into a house?
Well,
I realize you maybe, well,
The house I remember was fairly large. It had an upstairs with 2 bedrooms. It had a downstairs that had 3 bedrooms. And times when several of us slept in the same bed when we were small.
I think the time I moved into, I'd forgotten, it was a log house at the foot of the hill where we're building a new house. They built 2 rooms onto the house immediately, and there's where we slept, piled up occasionally. The most important thing though, there was never all of us home. Oscar was off to World War I. Shortly after he was back, he went off to college. Henry married very young, and Fred and Ray were not born yet. So I suspect most of our family life was 6 or 8 at home, not 17.
Well, in my memory, of course, John, Robert, Maggie, and Nora graduated from high school in 1926. I was only a 2-year-old. They went to college. They never came back home to live, basically, except Nora. So when I grew up, Nora, Sue, Sam, Hubert, and myself were the ones at home. To my knowledge, our family was only together 2 times in my lifetime. Both times there was a family picture taken. Once when I was 2 weeks old, the second time I was 4-year-old.
I don't think that would be true. I don't think there was another time when somebody wasn't absent.
Even holidays and things?
Even holidays.
Holidays were not observed then, except
I was
Christmas.
trying to think of a time
On
when
that from the way you feel about them now.
we didn't have reunions routinely and that kind of thing to get the family together either. It was, if something was coming up, we might have had most of the family there. Of course.
See, there was no deaths in the family to bring the family in.
Well, that's good. Did you go visit aunts and uncles or cousins very much? Grandparents?
My grandparents, I never saw a grandparent. They, my grandmother Darty died before I was born. My grandfather Darty died when I was 1 year old. My grandfather Beaty died 14 years before I was born. My grandmother Beaty died when I was 7 or 6 or 7, but she lived in Texas, and my father didn't even go to the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember many times when we'd, sometimes it was wagons, later truck, when we'd all pile in, pack a picnic, and go to Grandpa's, or even go to Uncle Will Doherty's down in Polk County, near Benton. Not regularly, but infrequently, we'd visit Grandpa or uncles and aunts. Not as often as we would today with automobiles and easier and better roads.
So, how did you celebrate Christmas and whatever holidays you...
Don't think we made as much of them at all. The churches didn't, the schools didn't, although we did observe it more in school probably than in church.
What did your family do though?
Well,
We usually tried to pull some kind of gifts together for stockings. That was about it.
I don't know, I don't remember too much about Christmas Day in my own family. Some families, as I got a little older, would use the day to go rabbit hunting, something like that.
Well, we went squirrel hunting on Thanksgiving.
You didn't have traditional
And
turkey?
4th of July, we went to the mountains to pick huckleberries.
No, there were no turkeys available unless you grew them. Grocery stores didn't have refrigerators or freezers.
There haven't been wild turkeys around here?
There was no wild turkeys to be killed.
Very scarce.
Now, years earlier, when their parents lived afoot of Walking Crow Mountain, turkeys were so plentiful. My mother told me that they came off the mountain and worked on the crops. They had to watch their crops, keep turkeys from devouring.
Wow.
Like the peas. The peas were the cash crop to buy winter shoes.
Well, even in our day, culprits would set fire to the mountain so the turkeys would come in the ashes, scratching the ashes, not realizing they were destroying the turkey's nest and driving the turkeys away forever.
Mm-hmm. So is that what happened to them?
Many a night I'd watched the fire burning from top to east to west of the mountain. The one.
I guess that's partly what happened. The other was just people using them for food because all wild animals in my childhood were sought and used for food.
Mm-hmm.
The rabbits, the squirrels, the possums, and I don't know of any we got besides that.